How about bluefin tuna? I was in a restaurant recently in San Francisco, and the sushi chef was bragging about the fact that eat it while you can because it's going soon. And I was appalled and refused to order. And I mean, but that mentality is out there. Are we going to be able to save bluefin tuna? Is this policy going to have any impact? Obviously, this is an international issue, and there's been a lot of concern. Is bluefin tuna going to go away? Can we do anything?
Well, the U.S. government made a real attempt at the annual or biannual meeting of the, of course I'm going to forget what it means, but the CITES organization, the organization that regulates the trade in endangered species. And we tried to get the bluefin tuna listed because, and Jane will correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, there are very few of them left, and they are, I think, rapidly approaching the point where it may be impossible to save them as a species. They're very highly prized, and so we tried very hard to get them listed and ran into a lot of resistance. So we're evaluating what options we have. I think it's an international issue that the world has got to agree on a strategy to deal with the overfishing that is causing this species to be on the brink of extinction.
But by the time everyone agrees, it's too late.
Well, we hope not.
Okay.
And we have other mechanisms that we're pursuing through regional fisheries management organizations. And we're looking at what our options are to see what we can do. But the U.S. government believes that we need to do something and do something soon.
Is yellowfin a little different? Less dangerous, less perilous? I mean, there are even eco lodges here in San Francisco that have yellowfin on the tuna, yellowfin on the menu, which surprises me. But is that?
You know, it's hard to keep track of all the different species, and a lot of people are confronted with going to a restaurant and sort of not knowing. They have heightened awareness that there's some issues. They don't know what they are, and there are a number of organizations, for example, the Monterey Bay Aquarium, that has a seafood watch card.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
There's an iPhone app now.
And there's an iPhone app for it. I was just going to mention that, and that's very cool. So it actually is an easy way to stay current with what is sustainably farmed or caught in a way that can help inform consumers, provide information to consumers so that you can make up your own mind.
Let's talk about extreme weather events. Obviously we hear about NOAA and hurricanes and extreme weather. Will the frequency increase? Will the intensity increase? What can we expect along that front? And then I want to get Nancy in on how the policy might, this new policy might plan for more extreme weather events.
All of the good, solid scientific predictions that we have about what's likely down the road with climate change, not so much predictions but forecasts, really point to much greater variability and more extreme events. And so the just amazing stretch of heat wave that Russia has experienced, Moscow in particular, this summer, that is once in a millennium event now, will likely become much more routine in the future if we continue, if we don't curb carbon dioxide emissions. The really, really intense flooding that Pakistan has seen, with about a fifth of the country having just really intense rainfall events, those kinds of things are likely to be more frequent in the future. So more extreme events more often. And even though we cannot point to any one of those and say, aha, that's a smoking gun that proves that climate is changing, those are consistent with what we expect to see under a climate-changed world. More and more extreme events, and not just in those countries, but in our own as well. And we have already seen very significant increases in intense precipitation events, more heat waves, more extremes And we fully expect that in addition to things like sea level rise that are potentially problematic for most of the coastline of the U.S., there are also these other extreme events.
Nancy Sutley, you work in the White House. What's the White House doing to get prepared for all of this?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. One of the things that we started pretty early in the administration, and Jane has joined me on, and the Office of Science and Technology Policy, is to pull together the federal agencies to try to develop a strategy about how we're going to deal with the impacts of climate change. So looking at adapting to the impacts of climate change. And of course, our priority is to minimize those impacts by trying to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, mitigate climate change. But we know we're going to have to deal with the inevitable effects of climate change. So we've been working for about a year, and we have a report to the President in October looking at what does the federal government need to do to organize itself to respond to the impacts of climate change. And so if you think about programs that the federal government runs, so for example, if the Federal Highway Administration is going to fund a new highway in the Florida Keys, well, they should be thinking about
building it a lot higher.
What the risks and the vulnerability to rising sea levels are of that federal investment, as well as thinking as agencies who, for example, have land management responsibilities or responsibilities over species, thinking about how, for example, forest management plans or wildlife refuges are going to have to recognize changes in the species that they're going to find in that wildlife refuge. And so we've been working on this for a while and expect to have this strategy out. But I think one of the really important things is we've done a lot of public meetings on this. We've talked to a lot of people. One of the real places where the federal government is going to have to step up is to help state and local government deal with these impacts. Yeah. I mean, I came back to the federal government from local government, and we said that local government are the first responders. So if it's sea level rise, how is that going to affect San Francisco Bay or the sewage treatment plants that the city of San Francisco operates, wildfire in California, changes in hydrology and the impact on water resources in California. These are all things that government is going to have to deal with, and we're already starting to see those effects. So we're all working really hard to get this strategy out. It's part of our overall federal sustainability efforts. The President issued an executive order last October requiring the federal government to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 28%. But part of it, also in that executive order, is this: we've got to deal with how we're going to adapt to climate change and how we're going to help the nation adapt to the inevitable effects of climate change.
Let's get to audience questions. We have about 12 minutes left. We'll have brief questions, brief answers, and try to include as many as we can.
Okay, thank you. My name's Roger Thomas. I represent a whole bunch of salmon fishermen. And salmon have survived in the oceans forever. And we all know what the problems are with the ocean. I like your words when you talk about enhancement and sustainability and all those things. Has the Council considered how they're going to look at the real problems with salmon and work with the federal agencies or mandate them somehow to keep the salmon going the way they should be?
Let me just say briefly in response that salmon really illustrate many of these land-sea connections, and the fact that our former policies haven't really understood how what happens on the land affects the ocean part and vice versa. And one of the opportunities for this National Ocean Council, the regional planning bodies, is to begin working with states and incorporate more of these land-sea connections. And salmon are a perfect reason to be doing that and doing it in a much better way than we have in the past.